What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I greatly appreciate you tuning in. As the title implies, this is long overdue, and I'm going to do a Taylorsville Lake breakdown of what I've learned and what I know, and I'm going to share it with you guys. And the biggest, most asked question that I get about Taylorsville is, what color do I throw? Okay. We're going to get this over with before we get dive deep into the map, and because I'm going to bring up a map and we're going to go over little parts and stuff. But color, I keep it pretty simple. The water is generally a grassy green color. We're going to call that neutral because it's never clearer than that, and it's obviously it gets dirtier than that, but we're going to go with the grassy green color as considered clear, even though it's not. I like to use colors that are just a couple shades brighter than that. Okay. I do go brighter, and I'll show you a couple of them. I've caught a ton of fish on this bait right here. This is a Berkeley Fritzside in the Chartreuse root beer. But the problem with these baits like this that are this bright, you have to work them fast. Like, you have to have them things going. And another one that I've had a lot of success with is the Bill Lewis 4x4. This is the color Oyster. Got to get that thing moving fast, because you don't want them to get a good look at it in that normal water, because to them that's normal. Okay. And then another bait that I have that works really, really well is a jerk bait. And I know this is a neutral-ish color, clear, but you'll be working this a little bit slower, which is cool in that water because it's not as bright. You know what I mean? You can afford to work this a little bit slower because it's not as bright. Those other ones, you got to keep them things moving, hitting that cover, bouncing off things and whatnot. And when the water is got some mud stain to it, you know, tan water, brownish tan water, I like to go darker on the spectrum, meaning like your blacks, your really dark blue, really dark brown, really dark green, just dark purple. Those are what I'd use in the muddier, not muddy, not chocolate milk. I'm talking about like muddy, like tan dirt stained water versus completely just mud. Those will work too in just mud, but I'm talking about like slightly muddy water. That's what I'm saying. You dig? Y'all ready for me to show you where to use these colors on the map right now? All right, y'all, what up? This is obviously Taylorsville Lake, and here's the main marina right here, and this is generally where I launch from. There's 3 different boat ramps. There's the Settler's Trace, which is the marina. There is Chowing, and then there's Van Buren. I've never launched out of either one of those other ones besides, oh, there's the state park too. There's Possum Ridge, I'm sorry. There's four Possum Ridges over here, right there. And I do launch out of there quite a bit, depending on which way the wind is and whether it's helping me or hurting me. But for the most part, I launch out of this area. And you've noticed I have it color-coded here all the way around the lake. And that is because the thermocline gets to about 10 feet, okay? The thermocline means that anything below 10 feet, there's no oxygen, okay? So no fish is going to go below that unless they breathe air, which is gar and stuff like that. But anyway, I usually launch out of this little area right here. And obviously I go down this bank and I hit these little pockets right here. But I generally don't do that well until I get in this area. And you can see the flooded timber in the waypoints where I've caught fish, where there's other stuff in the water. But I generally try to stay on that green line because that is the 10-foot mark. And then I got it set from 10 foot to 8 foot. So any green is 10 to 8 foot, and then anything red is less than 8 foot. That's how I got my stuff set. So you're really looking for irregular things that are in the 8 to 10 foot range, because the reason the bigger ones are going to be in that area is because it's cooler and they can watch the bank at the same time. So they're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. They're going to be cool and they're going to be looking for food. Now, this flooded timber right here, it kind of sucks that it's in deeper water, but it doesn't suck at the same time, because some of this flooded timber, it will be, the tips of it will be in the 10-foot range, And those bass hang out in the tips of those flooded timber. There's some right there, and there's some over here too. I don't care what this map says. There's flooded timber right in this area. Like right in this area somewhere. And it peaks out at about the 10-foot mark. And there's some big ones living there. And, look for these little irregular things, these flats. This little flat right here. Big ones will sit right in there. I've caught a few big ones right there. And I always catch a fish on this point right here for some reason, or this rounded point right here. I don't know why, but every time I go over there, I catch one. I have the most success in this area in the summertime. Not sure why. It's probably because there's a lot of shallow area. It'd be my guess. These flats right here. And there's a lot of space right here, that 8 to 10 foot range. And these little things right here is fish attractors, the little fish things. So if you see these on here, that's what those are. But yeah, that's one of my favorite spots to fish in the summertime, is that area, right? Little beach area right there. And then, I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a massive, massive little channel swing right here along this rounded point. And for some odd reason, I have not done very good there. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But right there where that 10 mark is, I caught a 4-pounder right there in that green area zone. I was right here. I was like on the right side of the 10 throwing down that line, down the green zone. And my bait was entirely in that green zone the entire time. And I caught a 4 right there last summer. But I never skip this point. I always fish it, always, just in case. You see where that thin green line is? I think that's the reason why they don't hold there very often. These thicker green lines is where I seem to catch fish at. And I know that seems kind of obvious, but that's just what I've noticed. And then I always go down this bank right here. I usually catch a few. I've caught some big ones down through here. And let's see, where's that at? I've caught a big one right there where that little indentation is right there. I think it was right there. Yeah, it was pretty close. It was down here by this cove. It's where one of these bigger patches of green area right in here. But anyway, I've caught fish all down through here before. I remember early spring out here in the middle, there was a gazillion white bass and crappie out here. I'm talking about like my 2D sonar was just filled to the max. Like I couldn't even, I don't know why I didn't have any crappie stuff with me. All I had was big crankbaits and stuff, and they wouldn't touch any of it. But anyway, that's that. But basically, you're just looking whenever you open Navionics, which that's what this is. Make sure you do the shaded stuff from 10 to 8 feet, and it will give you a better idea of what you're doing when you get out there. And I'll tell you what, another thing, I don't like to hug the bank too much. I like to stay out in the deeper water and cast into the red and bring it into the green, or stay in the green and cast along the green. The only problem with doing that is it's really hard to do, to stay in that, because it's so small. So I like to cast diagonally into the red and bring it through the green all the way down the bank. That's how I go about doing it. You can do it however you want, but that's how I do it. And then when I launch out of this area, I generally do not mess with this cove over here. I don't know why. I never do any good over there. Maybe it's wind dependent. I guess I just never do any good down there. And I usually go along this bank, and this area right here looks really, really good, but I've never done any good in this area either, because you've got all the green, you've got all the red. That's where fish should be. I'm assuming it's all wind dependent too, because there's two big stumps over here too, and then there's it gets deep over here by this bank too, and I'm really surprised that there's not fish in this area. Maybe there is, it's just the wrong time of the year or something, maybe wintertime or something. And I've fished all along this bank, and then when we get down to this area right here, there's a bunch of hangover trees, and I'm not sure why, but in the summertime, fish are looking for shade. Cooler waters, shade, food. That's all they care about. And there's shade in this area, but I've never caught a fish in here in the summer underneath that shade. Not even once. Now, what I do is I go down here to this, right in this area right here. As you can see, there's a lot of red and a lot of green, which is probably why I do really good down here. As you can tell, you notice a pattern. Anywhere where there's red and green is usually where I catch fish at. So I usually do pretty good right in here. And this little area right here where it gets, where that big red and green part is, there's a wall there. Maybe it's, yeah, it's right here. I'm sorry. There's like a wall, even though I've caught fish here too, but I'm just telling you about this little part right here. You want to fish this entire area, that red and green area. They're up here where this little cut is, this little cove. There's a wall right here, and it transitions from rock to dirt. And I usually, right here where this flooded timber thing says, right here, I usually catch a fish right there, or two. And I throw out here in this area, in the flooded timber. And those fish are like, I don't know, they can't go over 10 feet. So none of the baits that I'm throwing go over 10 feet. They either go 10 feet or less. And if they do go 10 feet, I'll use a little bit heavier line to make sure I keep it above that 10-foot mark. You know, like a DT10. I'll throw it on, 17 pound line, sometimes even 20 if I have to. I generally don't throw it on 20, but usually it's 15 to 17. And then DT6s are good ones. Like I said, the 3 baits that I showed you in here, chatterbaits are always a good bet. And I'm normally throwing crankbaits because I can cover a lot more water. And all this red and green back here is good, is game. Is really, really game. I usually do pretty good back in here. And I haven't really explored a whole lot of the other lakes, or the other part of the lake. I mean, I went down this area before. And I've caught a big one right in this area where that big green part is right there. I caught a big one right there. I think it was the first time I ever took my kayak out. I caught one right there. But anywhere in that green and red section is really fair game. This lake is so weird. Like, you should just cover, if you cover enough water, you'll pluck one off here and there. That seems to be the name of the game at this place. And any of these coves, these little cuts, these little pockets, you definitely want to get a bait in those. And you want to get a bait over top of the point that created, the rounded point right there that's created from that pocket to the right there. See the little, right there? The pocket is on the right, and then the rounded point is on the left. You want to hit both of them. Hit it in the red and the green area. Run it across both of those areas, the red and the green. And I think I've been down to this area before, and I didn't go past here. But then I'm in a kayak, so I've only got 4 hours, so I didn't get too far. But there, I went that far, and then, let's see, this right here, I haven't done great, because it was really close to winter time. But this is the hump, if anybody's wondering. The green is 10 foot, so obviously there's potential there. And then you've got a lot of red and green over here on the right side, which I've been all down through this bank. I did not go back in this cut, but I wouldn't put it past it being really, really good. I fished around this point right here. I didn't catch anything until I got down to here, but all this stuff is fair game because these fish could be anywhere. They don't really have a rhyme or reason. They're just in different areas for whatever reason. So it's really, 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 really important to cover as much water as you can with something you feel confident in and something that's really efficient, like a crankbait. Yeah, you will get hung up, but that's just part of it. And if as long as you don't really set the hook or anything, usually you get it back. I've lost a lot of baits here, but not as many. I've been snagged way more times than I've lost baits, so let's just leave it at that. But this is a summertime pattern, the 10-foot thing. In the fall and the winter and the spring, this doesn't even apply. But that's what I know about this lake so far, and I'm still learning. You know, I'm a pretty good student of the game. I learn just about every time I go out at this place. You know, I might catch a fish on some place that I normally haven't. You know, and I'm always wondering, why was that fish there? What elements made that fish be there? Stuff like that. What structured and whatnot. But anyway, that's what we're gonna do for right now, and I'll probably do another one once I explore more of the lake. But that's what I know about this area right there. I hope it helps you all catch more fish, and thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you on the water. I'm a real fisherman. I don't need no sonar. I don't